Hello, and welcome to the next summer school lesson for grade 11 Life Sciences. In summer school, we look at important concepts that you have learned during the year, which are necessary for you to be able to understand some of the concepts that you will be doing in matric. So in this lesson, I've extracted certain aspects from your grade 11 curriculum that you will need to know for grade 12. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the control of substances in the body. Or you might have heard the word in your lessons that is called homeostasis. What is this all about? Homeostasis is controlling the environment of cells. So first of all, we need to have a look at cells. Okay, if we look at this little picture, here's a blood vessel bringing blood, and some of the blood plasma moves out of the blood vessels and surrounds the cell, and we call that tissue fluid, which you might have heard of in grade 10 when you learned the lymphatic system. So tissue fluid basically comes from blood plasma, and tissue fluid surrounds the cells, so we call it the internal environment. And it's very important that in this internal environment surrounding the cells, this yellow substance here, which is all the way around the cells, it's got to have enough of all the substances that cells need. Food, oxygen, etc. Because quite honestly, when a cell needs food, it can't wait until you eat your sandwich and your sandwich gets digested. It'll have died before then. So when your cells need food, there's got to be food right there that they can absorb it immediately. So there's got to be food here around the cells. Another important point is there must be no harmful substances. For example, waste and alcohol, all of which can harm cells. Sometimes cells produce waste products. Those have got to get into the blood and be taken away. And you learnt about that this year when you learnt about the kidney, how the kidney takes the waste products out of the blood. Now, keeping the balance of these substances correct. In other words, is there enough food around the cells? Is there enough oxygen? Is there very little waste? Is the pH right? That is called homeostasis. And the word homeo means the same or steady. So homeostasis can be converted into English as a steady state, keeping the amount of substances in your body just right for your cells to stay alive. Where do these substances come from? They come from the blood. So your body tries to keep these substances in the correct balance in the blood. Your body's got to be kept at a correct temperature. You've got to have the right amount of water in your blood, not too much, not too little. You've got to have different mineral salts or ions, calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, things like that. But again, not too much, not too little. The blood acidity level has to be kept correct, and that's the blood pH. Can't be too acid, can't be too alkaline, because you have learnt that what happens to proteins when the acidity changes? Proteins denature and they can't carry out their functions. So homeostasis is this balancing act, keeping the constitution of the blood at the correct level. And the last one, very important, you've got to have the right amount of glucose in your blood to feed your cells, but not too much glucose. Question: how does your body do this? And it does this by something called negative feedback. And negative feedback counteracts any change. For example, here, you're holding your breath, the carbon dioxide levels in your blood rise. Too much carbon dioxide, we've got to bring it back to normal. So the control system forces you to inhale or exhale to bring the levels back to normal. Now, the control centers that control these different aspects are either the brain or in some cases certain glands which secrete hormones. Let's have a look at what we call a negative feedback loop. How does this negative feedback actually work? So if we look here, first thing is, if there is an imbalance, in other words, there's too little glucose, too much carbon dioxide, the change has to be detected, and the change is detected by a receptor. And in your body, you have receptors that are sensitive to CO2 level, acidity, glucose level, etc. And they first have to sense the problem, and they then send a message to the control center. And the control center is usually the brain. So the brain has to be informed, there's a problem here. The brain will then counteract that problem. If it's too much glucose or too little glucose, the brain will counteract that by sending a message to an effector. And this can be either by a nerve impulse. For example, if you've got too much carbon dioxide in your body, you'll breathe faster, and that's a nerve impulse from your brain. Or if it's the glucose level that is incorrect, the message will be sent via a hormone, and the hormone will then act on different parts of the body, and that will cause the balance to be restored. So the effector reverses the change and it restores the balance. In other words, it will be back to normal. Now, your body does this for all essential substances, and some of the systems that you looked at this year, you might have actually touched on how some of the different systems actually do control the substances that they are involved with. We're going to look at that, but I think first you need to have a break and get some more oxygen into your brains and let the glucose flow to your brain cells so you can absorb what we do after the break.